and welcome back to a very special episode of Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero, and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but what I am is somebody who has been entertained by this show for 2 consecutive weeks, and that is 2 consecutive weeks longer than any other season of the show that I've been part of. And so here we are.
Yes, we're actually in Mexico on vacation, watching and giving our takes to this episode, and I'm so excited. I think that had this episode been terrible, I would have been so angry to to have to be spending time on vacation talking about it, but it was so entertaining. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's 90 degrees, perfect weather outside right now, and the palm trees are blowing a nice breeze, and we are inside because as some of you know, I was hoping that I could grease some palms and let them get the resort to let us film this on the dock gazebo thing, and they were just a flat out no, Mr. Chris, absolutely not. But before we get too far into it, I want to address a couple of elephants in the room. Okay? First elephant in the room is obviously we're traveling with limited equipment, so if our lighting and our audio and video isn't quite as good as it normally is, we apologize. We did the best we can, but we're sort of learning how to podcast when traveling around. Second thing, I know a lot of you in the comments, you say it all the time, you are only here for images of Max the cat, and Max the cat did not travel with us. There will be no cats in this podcast. I understand that upsets a few of you. I did try to reconcile this. I may have tried to entice and tempt some of the wild, undomesticated feral resort cats into the room, despite the fact that the resort staff were also like, no, Mr. Chris, that is definitely not allowed. That might have happened. Also, what might have happened is that Mr. Chris discovered that resort cats are not enticed by mango-flavored cheesecake. And so that also might have happened. But I don't really want to talk too much about what I learned and my failures. I really want to talk about what some of the guys on this season, some of their failures, and some of the things that maybe they could have learned this episode.
And let's add Jen to the mix, too.
This was not a good episode for Jen. I have to say, I was very disappointed with Jen. We've said it all the time. We have concerns about her age and her maturity level, and this was a bad look for her across the entire episode. She handled so many things extremely poorly, came across as at times selfish and immature, and it kind of compounded on top of itself over and over to the point where by the end of the episode, I was wildly entertained, but I also was saying to myself, well, I don't think I would take her on a date.
Okay,
a little harsh.
I was just going to say a little harsh.
Maybe I would have second guesses about, I mean, she's cute as a button and she's so fun. So I would still take her on a date, but I would have serious concerns about whether or not she was ready for marriage at this stage, given some of the ways that she responded in this episode.
Fair. Okay, so we're gonna get into all of that. There's so much to talk about, but before we do, let's what we're talking about today. We are here talking about Jen Tran's season of The Bachelorette, season 21, episode 3, and I'm giving my therapist takes. Chris is giving his non-therapist takes on everything that happened during this episode. So we will, of course, get into all of that. Before we do, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. A little tap of that button goes a really, really long way for us. We're really trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. But end of the season would be ideal.
And please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel. And I will also remind you, we're podcasting on vacation. That's got to account for something. I look at the analytics. Only 5% of you are subscribed, yet 95% of you are return viewers. You're watching the content. You watch all the episodes. Why aren't you subscribing? Just throw us a bone. Hit that button. We'd really appreciate it.
We don't want to be in a toxic relationship with you where we are leaning in and not getting anything in return, as we heard Jen talk about incessantly during this episode. So let's be in a healthy relationship together. Let's have it be a little mutual here, please, with that subscribe button.
That was awesome. So well done, I gotta say. And with that, I don't know what that was, but okay. Oh. I think that was the sink.
I don't know. what it was. It was kind of creepy.
It was, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's just start off with opening thoughts. There was a lot happening in this episode, so there's a lot to potentially talk about. So let's just start off with initial thoughts and takes and things that you think were interesting in the episode.
I think ultimately, if I were teaching Psych 101, I would be showing this episode, particularly Sam M, as a case study in projection. And I just couldn't, like, every time he was on the screen, I was just like, projection. You can't unsee it with him.
Yeah, it felt to me like literally everything he said somebody else was doing is exactly what he was doing. Mm-hmm. He called Devon a bully. We've never seen bullying from Devon. We've seen bullying from Sam M constantly.
Too aggressive of a term, but he was more antagonistic, certainly. Sam M is antagonistic.
No. Okay. I would say that Devon is confident in himself and he's not afraid to stand up for himself, but at the same time, he's also not bullying, where you see Sam M bullying people constantly, multiple times throughout the episode, and he redirects who he's being, who's going to bully pretty constantly.
Not bullying, but I hear what you're saying.
Oh no, I think it absolutely fell into the. You think Sam M didn't fall into the category of a bully here?
I think it can border that. I think that he was being antagonistic. I think he was trying to intimidate. Do I think he was doing so in order to cause harm? Not particularly. I think he was doing it to serve his own end.
Well, he's attempting to exert the alpha status. I talk about it all the time. When you have groups of guys together, there's always naturally going to be, some sort of social shifting until, the alpha is determined in the room. And that can be determined by a variety of different situations. Sometimes it's hierarchical. You're in an employment situation and your boss is the alpha just by virtue of being able to fire you. Sometimes it's, going to be in a friend group and one person just naturally becomes the alpha. And in a situation like this, obviously it's more or less a free-for-all, while it's a little bit manipulated, because production obviously has a vested stake in making sure that this dynamic continues on. There's always sort of that push and pull that they're playing with behind the scenes as well, which makes it a little bit of a more interesting dynamic. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that Sam M desperately wants to be the alpha in the room. He's doing everything he can to, convey that. Obviously an awful look, but yeah, projection everywhere.
Well, and I think the thing that's really important to remember about projection is that it's a subconscious defense mechanism. It's something that people do where they displace, they put their feelings, their behaviors onto someone else because it's a way that they can cope with them, that they are not ready to confront those things about themselves. And typically when someone is projecting, it's a sign that they are dealing with maybe anxiety, stress, insecurity, things like that. And so the more that Sam M does this, the worse of a look it is for him, not just like as a human, but it's like you're telling on yourself a little bit, or a lot of it, actually.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was two things that really stuck out to me in this episode. We've already touched on one, bad look for Jen. This was, of the 3 episodes we've seen so far, as well as everything that happened in Joey's season. She's had moments where, I don't know, not a great look, but this whole episode, start to finish, was just a bad look for Jen. And the other thing was, I'm just going to keep coming back to it. I relate so strongly with Devon for so many reasons, and the relatability for me with him just continued multiple fold this episode. He was so strong in this episode, and I know people don't like Devon. I know people think that he's arrogant,
obnoxious.
He's obnoxious, he's too much, he's over the top, and you know what, guilty as charged. But you know what else he is? He comes off as genuine. He understands vulnerability versus, just trauma dumping. He, puts Jen first in every situation in a way that the other guys on this show are not even at a level of maturity to understand. He, if we were doing Grade the Game, throwback from our days doing Paradise, he gets an A every single episode, whether you like him or hate him. He is a guy who's insightful enough to understand what's going on around him, and he just plays these social situations so well and comes off as extremely genuine, even if he does come off as annoying and arrogant at the same time. I like Devon a lot. I will get into some of the stuff that happened with them, but yeah, those are my kind of two big takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Of course, as you said, we're going to get into both of those things to like in a bigger extent regarding Jen and what she showed us about herself and where she's at in the dating world and just maturity in general. But yeah, again, Devon he had moments of being endearing this week. And that might have been what was missing last week or the week before, because he does come off as this very confident, kind of self-assured guy. And there was something kind of nice about getting to see a different side of him, but still doing it in a way that didn't make me feel like a simp, Yeah,
no, absolutely. So shall we transition over to good date, bad date?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So those of you who have been around for a while, you know that we always like to talk about the activities on a date and the aspects of dates that we think are good versus what we think are bad. But we decided to make it its own formal segment. So from now on, we think we're going to kind of have a section where all we talk about are the date activities themselves. We're not really talking about what happened on the date or the interactions. We'll talk about those later in the episode. This is really just what we've done in the past kind of with each date, whether or not we think that the activities made sense for that time period in the kind of courtship process. So let's just do them in order. The one-on-one date, very classic helicopter date. They go up, they bang around the city, saw some beautiful sights, the 12 apostles. Then they, land. I guess they had some champagne while they were in there. And then they land and go have dinner. Super kind of classic date. Good date, bad date. You like this for a first date? Pseudo first date?
Yes and no. I feel like what I really appreciate about, or what I think makes a good date on this show, are things that you can recreate in real life. And unless you are very, very wealthy, this is not a date that you would normally go on or have the means to go on. So like, I already am like, I don't love this as a date. However, I do think it does give some opportunity for some good quality time. I've never been in a helicopter though, so I don't actually know like how easy it is to communicate with one another when you're up there. But it is like you are together all day, like you are with one another. So there's lots of opportunities to connect. So I think it's like closer on the spectrum of a good date. Not a date I would enjoy, but for those factors, I would put it in the goodish date category. What about you?
Interesting. I think your lack of having experienced a helicopter is showing in your answer, because I think it's a terrible date. It's all the reasons that you said you think it's a good date don't actually play in reality. If you think about, do you think sitting next to each other in an airplane is a good date? Well, sitting next to each other on an airplane, you have better communication and you have more ability to actually touch each other. When you're in a helicopter, you're basically strapped in the whole time. So you're next to each other. There's very little ability for you to communicate. When you're in a helicopter, you're almost always wearing headsets of some kind. And I really don't like that the communication has to go through some sort of medium, and it's very difficult to kind of look you in the eyes and have that conversation. I can't square off my body to you, so I feel like the body language is also quite limited. You also have other people there the entire time, and the nature of the helicopter rides is everybody's on the microphone and on the thing, so anything you say, these
it's not
other
very
people,
private
it's
or
not
intimate.
private or intimate in any way, shape, or form. And so I also don't particularly like helicopter rides. The first helicopter ride I ever took, I threw up the entire time. And the second helicopter ride went much more smooth. But it's just, I don't really love helicopters in general. I think that they are a wonderful way to see some very cool things. You want to, like the one that I had a really bad experience was actually on the big island of Hawaii years ago, and we got to go see all the waterfalls. I mean, not me, I was in a bag, but everyone else got to see all the waterfalls and everything from an angle that would be almost impossible to see elsewhere. So it's very cool if you're into the sightseeing, but it's something that is not first date worthy. It's something that is, we're in a relationship already. We're not there to talk and get to know each other. We're there to have an experience together. And in that regard, I think it's a wonderful date. But this is months down the road. As a first date, I think it's absolutely horrible.
Okay. Next date.
All right, so we got two group dates. Again, we got a giant group date, and then we got a small group date. So again, I say it all the time, there's the A date and the B date. We know which one was the A and the B. So the big group date, ultimately they went and they were the Chippendales, mimicking the Thunder from Down Under. Yep, the very, very classic Australian. They're out of Vegas, but the Australian Chippendale dancers, and
they got a little strip lesson.
Yeah,
they
we
did
knew
a
this was coming.
performance.
Yep. So, thoughts here. You basically you go in, you get a Chippendale stripping lesson, and then you go on and you put on a show for your significant other, but there's also other people in the crowd. Good date, bad date?
I don't hate this.
Interesting. Okay.
I think it's a good way to show your personality. I think it's a way to, and we saw who was able to just embrace this and who really got shut down by it. And so I think it's a good evaluation of that. Are you just gonna go for it and go all in? Can you let your ego go in order to have fun with this and show me who you are and show me that you don't take yourself too seriously? So I kind of like it. I don't love it. I wouldn't definitively say good, but I don't think it's bad.
Interesting. Yeah. I like this as a maybe third date, right? Second, third date, depending on how the first date went. I'm on record. I love the first date to be very intimate, private, values, discovery oriented. And then I like a second and a third date to start showing me your character in different situations. This is a situation where while, yes, it's obviously an over-sexualized experience, but it gets you out of your comfort zone. It's showing you, how you're going to respond and react in different situations, and how fun and outgoing you can be, and how serious you're going to take yourself. And some people, they want somebody who's going to be serious all the time. Other people want somebody who can let loose. But I think that Devon, and we'll get into it later, Devon really nailed what I want to see, and that is somebody who can tap into something, be outgoing and tap into something, even though it elicits some deeper, not fear necessarily, but discomfort of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's wonderful for that. First date, no. Second date, depends on how the first date went. Third date, love it.
Yeah. The thing about this date, though, is that it's not, to use
practical?
Reciprocal.
Well, it could be.
It could be.
It could absolutely be reciprocal, right? Now, I think that there's inherently, this is one of those touchy things where I think it plays better with a male Chippendale than it does the other way around. I don't think that I like it as much the other way around, right? That's just me. I think the other way around, I'd want to see it wait a few more than the second or the third date. Let's get to 5.
A little double standard.
Listen,
okay.
It's not that it's a double standard. It's that men and women are looking for different things, and men and women want different things, and we value different things, and that's okay. That's natural. That's important. So yeah, and it. It kind of comes down to the comedy thing. We say certain jokes, men can tell that women can't, and some jokes women can tell that men can't. That's not a double standard. It's just jokes land differently depending on the sex of the person delivering the joke, and that's okay. Right? As long as the jokes are funny, it's okay that if there's a class of jokes that just don't really land for you because you're a woman or because you're a man. That's just natural, right? It's kind of the same thing here.
Third date.
Okay. I love this date. Okay, racing cars. So this date could have been terrible. And so, you basically had an opportunity to learn how to drive stick shift if you didn't, or learn how to drive a race car, which all race cars are stick shift because driving an automatic is not actually driving. You might as well just be playing a video game. And then you do a race, only one circuit, which I think is bullshit, by the way. One lap, give them 3. They're just getting warmed up. And whoever goes the fastest, get some one-on-one time. So I had a bit of a callback to, and I thought about why I liked this date so much when I should have hated this date. And the answer came down to Jen was in the car with them. Mm-hmm. And I thought about the Golden Bachelor pickleball, mm-hmm. right? And I said to myself, I really didn't like the pickleball date at all because, Gary was just off to the side, hanging out, watching, but like he wasn't really engaged. And I thought to myself, you know what would have made that pickleball date great? Is if Gary played with every one of the women. Like, obviously, he's 70-something. Like, I'm not expecting him to play 12 things of pickleball, but, like, he should have maybe waited longer until it was down to, like, 5 or 6, and he should have played with every one of them on his team at some point in time in some rotation. And I would have loved that, because now it's interactable. There would have been time, even though they're not having conversations, they are communicating as part of being part of a team, and that's what changed it. If Jen was just sitting in the booth with Jesse and Jesse, were they both named Jesse? I think they were both named Jesse. With the two Jessies, I would have hated this date. And we'll talk about some stuff that happened on that date in a few minutes, which plays exactly into why I loved this date. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Yours?
Yeah, I liked it for that reason too. It was quick, the time that she was able to spend with each guy, but it was there. So I'm again in the good-ish. I didn't love any of the dates this week. I think that's kind of like clear by what I've said. They're all like fine, but I didn't think any of them were bad.
Yeah, I agree. I thought overall, they were all serviceable dates, in some manner, shape, and form.
Speaking of fine, lackluster dates, can we talk about the first date of the episode, the one-on-one date with Spencer?
Let's get into it. Yeah.
I clearly made my feelings about that date known.
Yeah, this was a bad date. This was a bad date.
Bad date.
You think this wasn't a bad date?
I mean, I guess I hadn't even thought of that yet.
I mean,
I was bored, but
I bored, absolutely. Aburrido for those Spanish speakers out there. Is that right?
I think so.
All right, sweet. I'm gonna ask Yolanda to make sure. Bored is definitely one way to describe it. I thought that both of them looked terrible in part of this date. Not physically looked, as in I think both of them just didn't come across positively. Like Spencer, when he was talking and telling his story the entire time, I was like, I don't see too many women getting excited about the way you're delivering this, your mannerisms, your tone, your body language, and then the way that Jen, responded. I was very much oof. I don't like that.
Well,
am I being too harsh?
I think you are about Spencer, in some way, but let's go through the date a bit.
Sure.
So Spencer gets the one-on-one, and we hear a voiceover from Jen saying that Spencer has golden retriever energy. And
that is not a compliment.
And it's so funny that you say that, because this is one of those things that I think women say, but say that they want or say that they're interested in, but don't actually want. That's not to say I think that I grew up with golden retrievers. They're lovely animals. They get
so big.
They get big and they shed a lot. But they are sweet and caring and gentle and just very loving, loyal pets.
Did you cry when any of them died?
Sure.
Oh, you
did?
Oh, I thought the answer was no.
What do you mean?
I don't remember you crying when Kobe died. That's the only one I was around for.
Anyway. So like all really, really good qualities. But like, and this is my personal opinion, not my therapist opinion, but my personal opinion is I also want a little bit more than that. And I do think referring to Spencer as golden retriever energy seems pretty accurate. And again, I mean that as a compliment. He seems like a very sweet guy. And so they go into this one-on-one date that we've already described. They have this helicopter ride, and Jen said, as they were getting started, I hope he puts me first because that's never happened before. And while they're in the helicopter, she's kind of noticing these small gestures that Spencer makes, putting her seatbelt on, pouring the champagne, and feeling like that's really amounting to him creating a safe space for her. And again, doing
so
things that no one's ever done for her before.
Yeah, I mean, that bar is so unbelievably low, A, and B, I don't think she knows what a safe space is. If all it takes is putting your seatbelt on and pouring, your champagne for you, yeah.
Yeah. And then, she goes on to say, later as they're getting into the night portion, that he's such a gentleman. He made me feel cared for. That's not something I've had before. Lots of toxic relationships. I wish that we, before recording this episode, maybe for next week we will, did an over-under of how many times we were going to hear about Jen being in toxic relationships. I need to do a count. Maybe at least 5.
Here's the problem. It's way over 5. I can't imagine it's less than 5. I based on the things she said now, I don't think her relationships were toxic. I think that she doesn't know what toxic relationships are, and so she's just labeling any relationship where she didn't that didn't end the way she wanted to end as toxic. I'm having a hard time as we start putting the pieces together and we start hearing more and more and more. It just sounds like, yeah, that was just a high school relationship. Yeah, that was an 18-year-old relationship. Like, we've all had them. Just because a relationship, somebody doesn't treat you exactly the way you wanted them to treat you, or like, we're all just figuring it out, especially when we're in our teens and our early 20s. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every relationship is toxic. And I'm starting to get the impression that she's just using this word and she doesn't really understand what a toxic relationship is. And it's starting to get a little bit old and repetitive and redundant. So yeah, that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty exhausted by it at this point.
And we're only in episode 3.
Yeah. We've got to pick a different narrative. It is time to turn the page, Jen, and do something different. Like, we can only. You being in toxic relationships also says something about you. And I want to know what she will be doing differently as a result of her being in these toxic relationships. It seems, she does later on in the episode talk about the fact that she really does need to get all of this sorted out in order to be in a healthy relationship. 100,000% yes, and I know that that's not how math works, but I think that's what's also getting really exhausting is, and maybe this is an unpopular take. This is certainly my take as someone who is trained in systems theory, which is that every individual that's part of a system or a relationship contributes to the dynamic that exists. And that's not to victim blame in any way, but if there is a toxic dynamic, you contribute to that, whether you enabled the dynamic or you created it. Or accepted it. Yeah. And so I want to see a little bit more ownership on Jen's part. And we'll get into this a bit more because I feel like we see her fall into a trap of what will likely be a toxic relationship soon. So sorry to get ahead.
It's already there. But yeah, like, before we get to that, because I got a lot to say there, you talked about Jen taking ownership of her part of a toxic relationship. And I love that you said that because you actually see it right here in this date with Spencer, where her contribution holds. Spencer starts talking about, he starts getting vulnerable about his past relationships. He starts talking about getting cheated on, about how he was previously engaged, and it literally they were months away from the wedding, and that's when he finds out that she was cheating. And Jen's response here was probably the worst look that she's had in at any point in time when she's been on this series. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was effectively.
I have the quote.
Well, okay, go for it. Yeah.
So she says, "I'm sorry you had such a traumatic experience. I can sympathize with you. Do you feel like you're ready and healed enough?"
Yeah. So let me translate that. Okay. I don't know how to be empathetic here because I'm just selfish and want to know how your trauma is going to affect me. I mean, she leaned completely away from empathy and directly into selfishness. And it was so jarring to me where I did a double take. I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. Now, we have seen her with Marcus struggle, right? So I was expecting her to potentially struggle here a little bit, but I was not expecting that response. And that was one of those responses where it was so jarring to me that I was like, wow, that would be a major red flag if I was on a date with a girl and that's how she responded to something like that. There's no other interpretation other than how is your trauma about to affect me? And there's nothing wrong with thinking that. There's nothing wrong with being concerned about that. There is something wrong with going directly in as your response, especially with the "I can sympathize," where the tone and the body language did not say sympathy. at all. And so that would be my complaint. I thought this was her worst look yet in this particular scene. It's all, thankfully, she had other rocky moments this episode, but it's all uphill from, or downhill. It's all better from here.
It's funny that you mentioned the Marcus conversation, because that was my immediate thought when hearing Spencer share this, which is pretty devastating.
Sure,
by the way.
yeah.
And listening to her response, I immediately referenced in my mind the Marcus conversation, and I was like, oh, maybe she's just bad at this. And similarly, and my thought last week is I don't think she knew how to relate to Marcus, and therefore didn't know how to empathize or respond to him. I think that she almost knew a little bit too much about how to relate to Spencer, got scared, and then, to your point, went into like this self-protection, self-preservation mode, and tried to, you said it so well, tried to discern how is your trauma going to affect me. What I will say, though, like, there are different ways that she could have responded to this, and we have seen a Bachelorette do this really well. And not surprisingly, Charity Lawson was a therapist, and so she had the tools to be able to figure out what good questions to ask that would still be centered on Spencer, but would also give her information about how it could like assess like whether or not he'd be a good fit for her right now. And we didn't see Jen take that opportunity.
Yeah, I guess my question to you would be, like, what are some of those questions? What is some of the methodology that you would use in a situation like that?
I think you'd want to know, like, I think of course you would say something validating or empathetic about, like I said, like, gosh, that sounds devastating. Like, what has it been like trying to navigate through that? Like, how have you been? Like, what was it like for you to come on a show when a woman's dating all these other men? Like does that bring anything up for you about this past relationship? Like, trying to again assess readiness for being in a situation where the woman you're dating is also dating a bunch of other men.
Damn, you're so good at this.
Like, that would be just, again, right off the top of my head, some things that I would be wondering about. And again, in trying to care, like, is there anything I can do to help you feel more comfortable given this situation and how triggering it might be? Yeah,
send every other guy home. I mean, the answer is actually pretty simple. You could just literally just send every other guy home, and we could just run off right now, go straight to...
Barring that. You know, and then that might give him an opportunity to say, like, you know, like, giving me like a little validation in some sense, or like maybe just like when you like do this with your hair, that lets me know like you're thinking of me, or something like that. Maybe that's too cheesy, but like trying to find a way to actually connect and for them to kind of be there for one another. And I think what frustrates me is it was such a missed opportunity on Jen's part to actually get closer to him after he shared something vulnerable. It felt like a cheap shot. I didn't like it. And I was even more frustrated when she summarizes the date after she gives him the date rose and saying, we can be our authentic selves with each other. And it's like, what?
Yeah. I you said it perfectly. I don't have anything in addition to add. I thought that he looked very beta, unattractive. I can't imagine many women getting excited. Not to say that he's going to be a bad guy. I think he's going to be a wonderful husband. I think he's going to be he seems like a genuine guy.
Seems like a
sweetheart guy. I think he's going to be but I think that he is going to struggle to captivate the hearts and minds of a lot of women because he is got that golden retriever energy.
He needs a little bit more Devon in him.
Correct. Yeah. I agree. And so yeah.
But he does get the date rose.
He does get a date rose.
So he lives to fight another week with his golden retriever energy. But let's then move on to the group date.
The big group date.
The big group date. Prior, though, to the group date, we do see some, like, we get a little temperature check of the house. And this is
hot. It is as hot as it is down here in Mexico right now.
Yeah, it's boiling up in there.
Oh yeah.
And essentially the whole episode really centers around, yet again, Devon and Sam M.
Yeah, Thomas N didn't make that much of an appearance here or there. He's
like the sidekick of Sam M.
Yeah,
you know, like Sam M's clearly the alpha and Thomas N is clearly the beta there. Like, but I just wanted to bring up kind of a juxtaposition of two different conversations happening. On the one hand, we have Sam M and Thomas talking about Devon, and Sam M gives this line that like we see in every episode, which is essentially, there's no way that Jen will be able to grow in a relationship with me while also growing in a relationship with Devon.
Or that there's no, he said it a couple different ways throughout, but there's also there's no way that a person could like both of us at the same time.
Right, because we're so different.
Because we're so different, yeah.
Meanwhile, then we shoot over to Devon talking to Sam N and saying like, I trust Jen. I trust her in knowing what she wants and knowing, who to pick, who's good for her, essentially. And so like, I wanted to, before we get into the group date and the ensuing events of the remainder of the episode, I feel like that is a good way to set the stage for what we're about to see. All right. So we have this group date number 1, as we've talked about, Thunder from Down Under. There are 10 people on this group date. Should we name
10?
them?
Holy cow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You're right. Wow.
So we have Dylan, Marcus, Devon, Thomas A., who I just learned who it was this episode.
Yeah.
John M. Do I know who that is?
No,
Thomas
he's another one.
Grant, Jonathan.
He was the one with his behind out. He was the.
Jonathan, sick patient.
Sick patient. Yep.
Sam N and Sam M. on this date.
Did you say Thomas N as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. 10 of them. Wow. Even the guys in the room were like, well, that is a big date. So I almost wonder, did the 4 guys that were left behind, did they think they weren't getting a date at all? Like, were they sitting there the whole time, like concerned? I would love to know if production had given them any sort of heads up that there were 2. Because depending on if you knew that information or not, you were either back at the hotel super excited or super upset. But yeah, so they go down, they end up at the theater, and this is one of those things where Jen does the whole like, I'm all into the theater and culture thing. The twist in this one obviously is that she is going to have them all do some training to be Chippendales with the Thunder from Down Under. Now, I want to point out that they teach them 3 core moves, and the first core move is the body roll, of which we have been trying to learn the body roll for 13 years. We actually were sitting by the pool today and we were looking at all of our old videos of the progression of our body rolls throughout all of the decade and a half or whatever it's been. And they were really atrocious at the start and they are really bad most recently.
Yeah.
Most of the guys who attempted a body roll were better right out of the gate than our body rolls are now.
I can't.
It's so weird.
It's so hard to do.
I don't have the back mobility. Like my spine just doesn't get up there like that, And they keep saying it's like a cat and a cow. If you can do it, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, they do learn 3 moves.
Yeah.
The body roll, the dolphin dive, and the shirt rip thing.
The grip and rip.
Grip and rip.
Yeah, the grip and rip. Which, by the way, not a great use of your money.
I also, and stop me if this is getting annoying, but I also, again, want to point out another distinction between Sam M and Devon. And that's Sam M says, Devon, if it's a competition, I'm going to step on your neck. Meanwhile, Devon says, I don't care what they think. I'm going to put my best foot forward and have a good time. 2 different energies.
Yeah. I mean, one person is consumed by somebody else and the other person is focused on his objective and his agenda. Who do we think is going to be more successful?
Yeah. And spoiler alert, Devon is.
Yeah.
The other person that's really having a difficult experience on this date is Sam N. And we see him really struggle. And he's like kind of being annoying in taking this like moral high ground around, I didn't come here to strip. I came here to fall in love. But I think at the same time, I think, again, that's another defense mechanism of him basically just feeling insecure and uncomfortable and anxious. And he's making it about something else. It's displacement in a way, another defense mechanism.
Yeah, it came off to me as defensive pretentiousness, right? It's like I'm being super pretentious, but it's all because literally I do not know how to navigate where I am. I'm wildly insecure, and so I'm trying to take some moral high ground. And look, I am all for taking the high road and for taking the moral high ground when it's appropriate. This just felt like a time where he was taking it because out of sheer fear, basically, and not a great look.
Not a great look at all. Not a great look. So the men really get an opportunity to not only practice these strip moves.
Costume up.
They get
name themselves.
Yeah. Identify a whole persona. And Jen is basically saying, like, I'm not looking for the best strip. I'm looking to see who lets their personality shine. So that's the assignment that she gives them. Mm-hmm. And then we see the performances of these guys. They're all pretty good.
They're all reasonable.
Talented. I mean, they're a very attractive group of men with abs and good bodies, and they're all young, clearly, in the way that they're able to move. But there were a couple that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we should start off with Mr. Flubber, right? He was super, Mr. Fluster. Yeah, Mr. Fluster. He was super confident.
Chef Fluster.
Chef Flubber. That's right, Chef
Fluster.
Fluster, yep, him. Look, he was super confident coming in. I thought his dance was perfectly acceptable, but he is driving so unbelievably hard on the fact that he knows that Jen is physically attracted to him. That is literally the fumes that he's driving on. Again, though, everything in his face to cameras were all him heavily focused on how he's going to beat Devon. It has nothing to do with how Jen's going to respond. It has nothing to do with, any vulnerability. It's, I got this. I'm the
so
man.
Confident.
Super confident. And again, didn't understand the assignment. Jen gave the instructions. She gave you the assignment. You weren't paying attention and you answered the wrong question, right? And that's really what it was. Compare that with Devon, mm-hmm. right? Devon acknowledges in face to camera, and then later on to Jen, he'll bring this up, how he was a fat kid growing up. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of body insecurities, right? Which is a very relatable thing, right? Mm-hmm. Something that a lot of people struggle with. And rather than lean into his fears like Sam N, right? Or project an overconfidence, he just went with it, right? He didn't, get overly consumed. And this is a guy who, again, Jen gave you the assignment. He understood the assignment. He executed the assignment. She wanted to see how you were going to respond. How you would could you tap into a part of yourself that was uncomfortable, show some vulnerability. And look it, Devon comes out in a male thong, the only one, right? Now, on the back of Jonathan night one, maybe it's not quite as impressive, but still pretty damn impressive, because at least Jonathan was in a room of one girl and all guys. Devon does it in front of a crowd of presumably 100 or plus women. So I loved what Devon did here. He wasn't the best dancer. He didn't have the best body, right? But he had the best energy in that room. He walked into that room and he let it rip, despite he was closer to Sam N than he was to Sam M, mm-hmm. right? In terms of competency and body. And you know what?
Confidence.
And confidence. And you know what? He shined. And he was the crowd pleaser. And again, he's so strong in these moments because he's able to tap into that and just let it rip sometimes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, this was such a genuine moment. And it was, one of the things that I had said prior to us recording that we're going to get to regarding Jen was, show me, don't tell me. I'm so tired of hearing you tell us these things. Show us that you're ready for a non-toxic relationship. Devon did a show me and tell me. Show me that you are, that you're in this, that you're going to go all in, that you have insecurity, but you're going to show up anyway. He backed up all of his words with actions that seemed incredibly just so genuine. And I, again, found that really endearing. As a viewer, I almost didn't need to hear him have that conversation with Jen. It was meaningful that he did later on in the cocktail portion of the date. But I just found him his authenticity was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Devon clearly stole the show for reasons beyond his body or his talent with the actual chippendailing of the event. And you can't ask for much more than that from somebody. Contrast that with, Sean N.
Sam N.
Yeah, this is a situation where I think it's so interesting, and production was so smart here. And I don't tend to compliment production that often, but it was so smart here, where they demonstrated the entire spectrum: overconfidence, massive underconfidence, and then somebody who lacked confidence, who was just gonna let it go. And the dichotomy between the three was fascinating to watch. Whereas Sam N, his music's playing, he shuts the music down, and he goes on and basically professes his love. Now, there's so many things wrong with this. One is he's a love virgin. He's had virtually no time with this girl. He doesn't even have any concept of whether or not he loves her or not. He's not falling in love. He's not in love with her. This is all just nonsense. Now, the guys in the house, many of them get upset about this. I'm not even upset about it. It's just sort of like, you just roll your eyes because it's just so ignorant. But I think the important thing here is a demonstration of a guy just completely submitting to his fears and his insecurities. He could have gone out there and done a Devon and made a bit of a fool of himself, but you know what? He would have owned it, and people would have said, you know what? Good for him, right? No one's gonna give a shit about this, and that's the most important thing. We all think that we're the main characters in our own story, right? And that everybody thinks like, if I go out and I do that, people are going to be looking at me, or people do not give a shit about you. Nobody's looking at you. And even if they do, if they watch you slip and fall, so I got a great example. Actually, you weren't there. I was waiting to play volleyball this morning, and there was a staff member who I didn't recognize her. She's one of kind of the excursion-y type people, and she came over to me and she's like, "Oh, thank you so much for not laughing at me yesterday." And I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," but I was polite. I put, "Oh yeah, no problem." I was thinking maybe she thought I was somebody else. And she's like, so I was leaving the buffet yesterday, and the sliding glass doors, the automatic doors closed on her. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And she was like super embarrassed, and it was like this big thing, and she's like, everyone was laughing at me. I looked over at you, and you were like, didn't laugh, didn't say, just as if nothing had happened. She's like, "I really appreciated that." And on the one hand, I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm happy that made you feel better." But I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, like, nobody cares. Do you think any of those other people
probably didn't register?
Didn't register to me, as if I was like, yeah, it was just a door. Like it's happened to all of us. But it was also like, do you think those people that noticed that you thought were laughing, do you think they remembered 20 minutes later? Do you think that that's the defining thing that they're going to remember about you for the rest of time? Do you think they're going home and saying, "Oh, can you believe the door closed on this dumb staff member"? No, people don't give a shit.
Well, that's, I'm not diagnosing her or Sam N with social anxiety, but that is something that can happen if you do get anxious in social situations or have social anxiety, is that you will amplify your importance, so to speak, when something happens. It does feel like a sense of paranoia that, yeah, everyone is laughing at you. Or have you ever seen those dramatizations where it's like you almost hear the laughter amplified? That's what it can feel like, and that you do worry that, like, yeah, for years to come, people are going to remember you as the woman that got stuck in the automatic door. But that's just what anxiety is, a friggin' liar, and that's what it does. And so, it sounds like she had a hint of that, and Sam N did too.
Look, I'm just happy that my complete lack of caring and register, she took that as empathy or caring or something like that. But apparently my lack of caring registered as caring. So hey, I feel like I got that one for free. It's like finding a 20 on the floor, right? So, So what else do we want to talk about on this? I think in terms of performances, they were all pretty good. Nobody really sucked, right?
No, I mean, I think two things are important to talk about are the reactions to both Sams.
Yes.
As you pointed out, and this will carry on through the remainder of the episode, but some men were really turned off by Sam N's suggestion that he is falling in love with Jen. And people like Thomas and Sam N referred to it as disrespectful, which I don't really understand how those two correlate, but that was
I'm a guy and I don't understand what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And I'm a guy who's very high on respecting.
We hear respect thrown around a lot this episode. So there's that. Jen had a reaction to Sam N, which also made me feel frustrated with her and showed her lack of maturity. She, later on in the night reassures him and says, I don't want you to be ashamed for sharing how you feel, or if that's how you feel. And then in her ITM, she said, yeah, it does feel too soon, but it also feels good to have somebody feel that way about me. And it feels like this journey is working for me. And it's like, again, one of those Gary Turner moments that is a little selfish.
So it's interesting that you took that, because this actually I didn't take as selfish. This I took as, first off, I say it all the time, Jen is a terrible actress. And she was so clearly turned off by the entire thing. Her whole demeanor was one of what I'm supposed to say something.
No,
I need to.
We've seen leads in the past where someone professes their love, which is too far ahead of where they even should be or where the lead is, and the lead will say essentially I'm just not there.
But those are stronger leads than Jen. Jen is not a strong lead, right? And that's the thing is, I said this last episode, Jen doesn't know how to tell a guy she's not into him at this point. She just doesn't. She's not there maturity-wise. And we've seen this multiple times. This was an opportunity where she was so clearly not into this, so clearly turned off by this. And in her face-to-camera or ITM or whatever you want to call this thing, she was obviously okay, I know I'm supposed, the script says I'm supposed to say something nice, but she's not a good actress and she couldn't muster it up. And it was the whole thing was not believable from start to finish. And it's so clear that she was out on this entire situation. And so this actually, if she believed it.
Is that not being selfish to keep him around because she's too scared to hurt his feelings?
I'm not this, what I'm basically saying is I'm not saying it's not selfish. What I'm saying is that I don't think in the other situation, in the Spencer situation, it just came across to me as unbelievably selfish. In this situation, it just looked like a very weak lead who was trying to say the right thing, doesn't know how to, be authentic, and you could interpret it as selfish. You could also just interpret it as she's a really weak lead who's struggling to say the right thing and landed on the wrong thing and couldn't sell it, right? And that's kind of how I interpret it.
Other reaction that I think is notable to talk about is the reaction to Sam M's performance. And as you had indicated, Sam M was very, very confident about his performance, kind of went right up all in there. Wasn't that impressive to me, quite frankly. The performance did not match it was disproportionate to the amount of confidence that he had in himself. And we see Jen
there was no handstand.
No dolphin dive.
No dolphin, yeah.
We see Jen get flustered, to use that word they keep exchanging. And then we see an exchange between the Australian bachelorettes with Jen saying, we've got to be weary of these ones. And then one of them says, because I picked one and it did not go well. And so we get this warning, almost this older sister wisdom of yeah, it's hot and sexy now, but it's something that burns this hot, can burn up quick.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is some of the best advice this is the 5th season of this show that I've been, watching with you. And this is maybe the best advice anybody's given since I've been watching this show. It's so obvious in all of their interactions that there's not a lot of depth to the Sam M Jen. It's all physical. And you had mentioned last episode how he changes her words a lot of the time. We're going to see it later in this episode. The way in which he engages with her, the way he sort of dismisses her concerns, kind of redirects her to basically just the physical component. Yeah, this guy is...
Walking red flag.
He's literally walking the red flag, and the two of you are not on necessarily the same page. You're just too smitten right now, and letting your eyes make judgment calls that your brain probably would not make. If this guy if this guy wasn't super attractive to you, he would have been gone because you'd realize he's a complete and utter asshole, and he treats you like shit, and she just doesn't see it right now. This is a definition of a toxic relationship.
Yeah, it's not good. Not healthy relationship material here. We do see, as we alluded to, Devon share with Jen about
being a fat kid.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I fast forwarded us to the night portion. Was that okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I don't think there was anything left to talk about with the performances.
Yeah.
I liked all the performances that had handstands. I'm a simple soul. Give me a handstand and I'm happy. Can I just point out one of the event staff here? She did a handstand and twerked.
No, a headstand.
A headstand and twerked on her head, and it was amazing. And I'm not saying that because we were looking at her booty. I'm just saying it was one of the most impressive feats of physical dexterity I have seen in quite a long time.
Lots of core strength.
Lots of core strength. Lots of what is that, a glute strength?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was super impressive though. I was all in on that one too.
Okay. In the nighttime portion, we see Devon and Jen have this exchange around his body insecurities and how that still comes up today. And then he thanked her for the opportunity to kind of work on it.
I loved that. I wrote the same thing down. The fact that he thanked her for the opportunity to kind of confront that part of himself, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Loved that. Meanwhile, Sam M is preoccupied with Sam N. And we had talked about this, again, off camera, about how Sam M's target switches.
Whoever drew the most attention from Jen is who suddenly his target redirects to.
Mm-hmm.
And because Devon has been somebody who's constantly directed Jen's attention his way successfully, he's continually been in the crosshairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We also get more camera time with the guys during this cocktail portion, because again, now this quadrangle square.
You've done that quadrangle thing twice now on the podcast. Yes, that's known as a square. You can do parallelogram, you can do square, you can do rectangle.
Well, because I want to say triangle, but
I'll take a rhombus.
Sides.
I'll take a rhombus as well.
In this rhombus, we have.
You know what a rhombus is?
I do.
What's a rhombus?
It's shaped like that.
It's basically a square.
That's
it's
slanted.
like if you had a box and you put something heavy on the box and it's starting to collapse a little.
Yeah,
the rhombus.
Yeah, that's what I was drawing.
That's okay. I'll trust.
So we have this rhombus that includes Sam M.
Of all the four-sided things, you decide to go with the rhombus.
Because square just doesn't feel like quadrangle is actually the right word.
Quadrangles are okay. Hey, listen.
Sam M, Sam N, Thomas N, and Devon are now in this dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay. And Thomas N got all these initials, and Sam M are laughing and snickering and kind of making fun of Sam N.
They're little schoolgirls.
They're being dicks, immature. Over it. And Devon is watching this and he's feeling very protective of Sam N. And we've seen them in conversations together. So they do have some sort of relationship. And so they're all kind of sitting together, and Sam N decides that he's going to address the group and to sort of apologize and say that he feels pathetic for what he just did, that he could have said it better. And Devon kind of chimes in and is like, no, dude, if that's how you feel, that's fine. You don't owe anybody an apology. And if anyone is having an issue with that, other Sam and Thomas, then that's their own issue that they need to work out. Spot on there. So that kind of incites more of an exchange between.
Well, what this did was this now redirected. They were now targeted at Sam N, and this retargeted them back at Devon, which again, what do I say all the time? Who are going to be the leaders in a group of guys? The ones who are not afraid to align everybody at themselves, or the alpha? Sam M desperately wants to be that alpha, but he has not taken that mantle yet. Devon continually redirects people and realigns them, and he has no fear about having them realigned at himself. And it is a very subtle power move. I loved every part of this. That being said, I agree partially with Sam N. He should feel pathetic, but I agree with Devon that he should not apologize.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. So then they get into this, they meaning Devon and Sam M mostly. Thomas, again, is kind of like a sidekick. about mutual respect. And Devon is saying to Sam, you know, when I smile at you, I clap for you, even though I don't want to, because I'm trying to show you mutual respect. And Sam M interrupts him to say, well, I don't respect you at all. I have nothing to say to you. And
meanwhile, he talks to him an awful lot.
And talks about him an awful lot. And while Devon is trying to talk, he interrupts Sam interrupts him multiple times, and then in Sam's ITMs, he talks about how Devon is the bully, yada yada yada, and we hear Sam say, you know what, the night he doesn't get a rose, it will all be handled.
It's called foreshadowing, people.
Then we get to the group date rose.
Ironic foreshadowing.
Devon gets the group date.
I just got to talk about this. So I knew that we were going to be limited in our ability to watch the episode. So I actually bought a sunshade for my laptop. We were watching this by the pool this morning. And so there's a quiet side of the pool and there's a loud side of the pool. And we're sitting on the quiet side of the pool where you could hear a pin drop. And we have our headphones in and we're listening to it. And the shout of exclamation and the high five we give each other just out of the blue when this happens, heads turning, and we're like, what is going on over there? First of all, we already look weird because here we are sitting on the beach in 90-degree weather watching a laptop, and everyone else is like, what are these two idiots doing? It was very comical. But yeah, it was so satisfying.
So
on every
cathartic. Level. I literally threw my hand in the air and cheered. It was so satisfying when Devon got it. It was it just felt like all the pieces clicking together. I was a big fan. Even if you hated Devon, I don't know how you don't cheer just for the irony of the whole thing. And I don't know how much of a hand production had in that. Honestly, I thought he deserved it on the merits of it regardless, right? Same. Based on the what we saw one-on-one time and based on his performance in the actual activity itself. So yeah, loved it. I'm realizing that we didn't talk about maybe the most stomach-turning part of this episode for me.
You're talking about the Sam M one-on-one time.
Yes. And this is one of two Sam M one-on-one times that really, really rubbed me the wrong way, but this definitely edged out for me. And this is where, Sam M in his overconfident quote unquote swagger is again using this phrase of fluster. You don't fluster me, you bother me. And that's now the second time he said that to her, to the point where Jen has to say to him, what movie did you get that from? Because it's clearly such a line that I'm sure he said to tens of other women.
Could be hundreds.
That he's been with or tried to be with.
Yeah.
And then she tries to be a little bit playful with him and says, you haven't asked me to be your girlfriend. And his response is to unbutton his shirt, straddle her, and start trying to kiss her and ask her that way. And she's turned off by this.
No, she's not. She's pretending. She's doing the high school, no.
You're bad news.
Yeah, you're bad news. Meanwhile, everything about her body language and her tone is saying, I am super into this. The whole thing was junior high, high school. It was stomach turning is correct. It was
I just didn't like it. It almost felt sexually manipulative.
Agreed. 100%,
and I did not like it. It felt like a power play. And it unsettled me.
And well, for one, I think that it shows her immaturity that something like that can still work. You're 26. Why is that still working on you? That's such a high school, junior high type of thing. So when you're in your mid 20s, that shouldn't work anymore. He was completely 100% power playing, basically dismissing kind of what she is saying and where she wants to go with the entire thing, and he's just bringing it back to more physical, and she melts into it. So again,
Sam, I'm so sorry that you don't have enough confidence in your personality that you need to lead with your dick, but people over the age of 30 are not going to be into that if they have any sense of self-worth. PSA for you.
No. I agree, but I don't think he needs to worry about The reality is
this works.
He doesn't need this works for him now, and he's not going to be going after women that are in their 30s, even when he's
or
over
have
30.
self-respect or self-worth.
No, he's going to be going after early to mid 20 somethings, well into his 30s, and then at some point in time when it starts to slow down and doesn't work as much, then he'll pick whatever woman he happens to be with at that point in time to marry and basically treat like shit for until eventually that woman realizes he's a piece of shit and divorces him, in a decade later. And then he'll start all over with the women who have just gotten out of their divorces, and on this cycle goes. We see this behavior all the time. It's so
tale as
so
old
cliche.
as time.
Yeah, it's so cliche. Yeah.
Okay, so we've exhausted that for now. Let's go on to the second group date. Luckily, not as much to share here.
No, I mean, look, this was a fun little date. They got into race cars. First off, I think the most important aspect of this is that Aaron, who I think we all hate almost as much as Sam M, we find him probably the most disingenuous of all of the people on the show. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. He suddenly gets his call to go and be a fighter pilot training. Hey, look, regardless of what I may think of him personally, that is the opportunity of a lifetime, and you don't do that you don't give up on that dream unless you think that there is something that's going to come out of this show, whether via clout or whether via a marriage or whatever it is you're looking for. And the reality is he's not going the distance with Jen. That was readily apparent. He already has his villain edit. He's got the whole twin brother thing going. And so he probably is already sort of a shoe-in for something like a Paradise anyways, but he's not going to be the Bachelor. So like, where is he really going? He's got what he needed from this show, and it's time for him to bail, and it's time for him to go and actually become a fighter pilot. So yeah, his path was obvious, but that's the backstory. So he's now figuring out like, oh, am I going to stay or am I going to go? Like, we all know you're going, dude. Like, this is not a question, but we have to play it out for the cameras, right? And so we go into this group date with only 4 guys. Hakeem, who we just love. Austin, who we have no opinion of because he's just not really on camera. But the guys in the house must really like Austin because plenty of them just come to his defense. Oh, Austin didn't get time and blah, blah, blah. No one ever says a bad word, but everyone always acknowledges when he gets shortchanged, which is like weird. I just feel like he must just be a really affable guy, and people all the guys in the house just generally just like him, and whatever.
We've also got Jeremy in addition to Aaron on this date.
Jeremy, the car guy, who we've felt good and bad about. We just sort of can't land on what we think of him. And then Aaron, obviously. Yeah. And so Aaron is the only one who's ever driven a stick shift, which is shocking to me because, I mean,
I don't know. They're all young. Maybe they didn't,
I don't know. It just seems to me like that's just something that men should just know how to do. It just feels like something men should just know how to do. Because even if you think about it, like all motorcycles are clutch shifts, right? So
I don't know that many of them have driven motorcycles either.
Well, yeah, fair. But anyway, it's just one of those things. So, and no, not only Aaron was the only one who had ever driven on the right side of the road, which also indicates like none of you have traveled outside of the United States and like rented a car or
I don't know if they're old enough to rent cars.
That's fair, but I mean, still, it just shocks to me. Maybe I'm just old, but by the time I was 21, I had already done both. Like, because in foreign countries, you don't need to be 25 to rent cars. Like, think about it. In Mexico, you can go rent a car here. I was driving a big giant like tank type thing in what is that little country off the coast south of Mexico? I forget the name of it. Anyway, yeah.
So essentially what this date is they are, some of them are learning how to drive stick shift, but they're also learning how to drive a race car. It culminates in they each do 1 lap around a track for time. Whoever gets the fastest time wins a little bit of extra time with Jen before they go into the nighttime portion. So we assume that Aaron's going to win because he's the only one with experience. Aaron comes in second. Austin wins the race. But the real winner of this date was Jeremy, who pulled a great move. And he just essentially stopped the car in the middle of the race so that he and Jen could make out for a minute or two. And then they kept going. So while he finished the race 2.5 minutes behind everybody else, he was the clear winner of the day.
Here's the thing. Great move. We don't know exactly how much time the winner one-on-one time is. My guess is it's not a ton of time, right?
We didn't really see any of it other than them pouring champagne.
No, we didn't see anything about it. But let's assume that it's like 10 minutes, right? So that you get kind of one-on-one time. Let's just assume for a second, because I don't think any of us think it's certainly not a date. There's not enough there to show us anything, right? You're not leaving the scene, so you're there. And all the guys are going back to the house together. So let's assume for a second that you have 10 minutes, right? Let's just math this out. Okay. Well, you have a 1 in 4 shot of winning, theoretically, if everyone was equal competency. Jeremy knows that he is not at equal competency with Aaron. Granted, Aaron did win, but let's assume that. So he's got less than a 25% shot. But that means that he has effectively 2.5 minutes. His expected return, if he plays the game the way it's supposed to be, his expected return is 2.5 minutes of one-on-one time. But it's binary. He's either getting the 10 minutes or he's getting 0. But the expected return is 2.5 minutes. Well, what did he do? He just stopped the car and said, I'll take my 2.5 minutes. This was a mathematically correct play. And it's like me, I mean, I don't know if production said, hey, get the car moving or not. I would have kept that car on the freaking lot for 5 minutes. But yeah, this was wonderfully executed. Loved every part of it. It is exactly what I would have done if I thought that I was in a situation that I certainly was not likely to win. Now, in this case, I can drive a stick, so I think I would have gunned it and just double clutch the shit out of it and tried to win. But let's say it was a basketball game. I ain't winning a basketball game. I'm totally,
You're the one faking the injury.
I'm faking the injury. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I loved every part of this. But otherwise, it was a pretty lackluster, boring date, and there wasn't much else to talk about.
Yeah, the daytime portion ends. Austin gets his time. They go into the nighttime portion. Jeremy and Jen have a little extra time. We hear again that Jen has toxic relationships. Jeremy makes me feel thought of, gets me without needing to say anything.
None of it felt... like it was all so forgettable and sort of boring, and none of it really felt like anybody was actually into what they were saying or doing. Do you agree, disagree?
I mean, it was all just, them swapping stories about their, experiences with like unhealthy relationships, whether it was their parents or them or whatever. So okay, who doesn't? Let's move on.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we get that line from Jen: in order for me to have a healthy relationship, I need to rehash all that I've been through. And agree. So Jeremy gets the group date rose here. Again, not surprising. He won the day, and he was far and away the front runner, even before going into this date.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just picked those 4 and said who, one person's proceeding and 3 people are getting eliminated, Jeremy would be the one that you'd pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, relevant. We do see this conversation that Aaron is having with whoever it is on the other end of the phone about the dates for the pilot class. And he doesn't mention it on the date, doesn't mention it to anybody else. He just kind of goes on business as usual, trying to... Which
I actually liked, because it did not put excess pressure. He played it off as, I am doing this, basically
due diligence.
I'm doing my due diligence, and I'm not going to put undue pressure on anybody, and I'm going to proceed to continue to engage, and if I get a sign that this makes sense, then that will weigh heavily into my decision. But I'm not going to, try and force the issue. I'm not going to try and put excess pressure on the situation. Which, I mean, look, in my mind, I think it's because Aaron already knew what his decision was going to be. But if I actually saw him as a somewhat genuine person and saw that as a genuine effort to figure out what he was going to do, I would actually applaud that pretty significantly. I thought that was a good way to handle it.
I agree, but I just
you're not buying anything that he's selling.
I don't. I really don't.
No. And apparently neither is our comment section.
We see you, Dina. Okay, let's get into the rose ceremony cocktail party.
Yeah.
We have 15 guys. We've only got 12 will remain at the end of this cocktail party, or end of this night, including the 3 group or date roses that have already been given out. And Aaron pulls Jen first. This is when Aaron tells Jen about his dates, that he's going to be leaving. Jen is in support, feels like it's going to be a good nice goodbye.
Doesn't, and this is what it's so interesting here because I keep saying like she doesn't know how to tell a guy that she's not interested in him. And I said it in one of the past episodes, she's not interested in Aaron at all. And it's so clear. And the second he's like, yeah, so he was not smooth in his delivery of that he's going home. And she's like, fantastic. Hey, I would do the same thing. I'll see you. It was like almost like a load off of her chest that he was self-ejecting.
I want this to be a marker of progress that we look at throughout the season for Jen is how much better she gets at breaking up with guys.
She's not good at it now.
She's not doing well right now, no. But it's something that we'll be looking for sure.
Yep.
So yeah, no, she doesn't do that. She's kind of like, good luck, good stuff. And then he decides, I'm just gonna
so
spice
annoying.
Things up a little bit on my way out.
Yeah.
And tells her that, just so you know, I care about you. And so I want you to know that there are some people here who are not ready, but I'm not gonna name names. And then she says, you're scaring me. And he replies, well, I'm not trying to scare you. I just think you should know. And then she asks for clarification. Like, is it that they're not ready or they're not here for the right reasons? And then he essentially says, that's not for me to tell you. That's for you to find out. And she says to the camera, like, well, that was a disingenuous conversation.
Yes.
And he then leaves and leaves her with kind of this swirl of doubt, in doubting herself a little bit, doubting her connections. We see her get actually flustered, and she goes and confronts the rest of the men.
Yeah, I have a lot to say here, and none of it is positive at all. So let's just start with the basics. Let's assume for a second that Aaron was being genuine. We know he was not, but let's assume that he was being genuine here. You have 15 men in a room. Obviously, some of them are not going to be ready. Obviously, if you are looking at one person's subjective opinion, they're going to think that certain people in that room are not ready. That doesn't mean they are ready. It doesn't mean they're not ready. It means it's somebody's subjective opinion. Why does somebody telling you something that is so obvious and apparent, why do you care and why would that affect you? Now, same thing with they're not here for the wrong reasons. That is another person's they're not here for the right reasons. Yeah. There's another person's subjective opinion. What is he valuing? Is what he values exactly what you're valuing? Why do you care whether he thinks that they're there for the right reasons or not?
I mean, you're using logic and reason.
But this is where I want to go with it. Is that we already know this. It's not like Jen doesn't know what this series is about. It's not like she doesn't know that people use it for clout.
Of course.
It just felt disingenuous that she had this come down and I'm gonna come and it just felt like production is saying, oh, you got to go down there, you got to lay the hammer down, and just like
I don't know.
Let's move on.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe there's a part of that, but I do think, like I said, you're using logic and reason. And it's likely that he said this and she's like, oh shit, this is something I'm actually worried about. Anxiety got the best of her. And as I've said multiple times when we've done this show, is that when we get emotional, we're really friggin' dumb. And so our logic and reason center cannot kick in because our emotional brain takes over. And so she can't access that then. I mean, it's not, she gets to that point later on in the night, but in that moment, her emotional brain is on, her logical brain is out.
So you think that was a genuine response from her and not prodding from production?
I think it was a genuine response / an opportunity to reestablish her stake in the ground of I'm in charge here. Don't fuck with me.
Okay. I get that. I just hated it. To me, it just demonstrated a lack of maturity,
and this is a part about Jen maybe that I can relate to, and maybe why I'm coming to her defense a little bit. I could sympathize and empathize with her as being someone who's diminutive, who's small and who's petite and who has a cutesy look to them, who people don't really take seriously.
Nobody doesn't take you seriously
now.
That's fair, yeah.
But when I was younger, no one took me seriously. No one thought I could be. The word that's coming to mind, maybe it's because I hear her say it all the time, is ferocious.
You are awfully ferocious.
So I think people saw me as an easy target to kind of just take advantage of because I'm so nice and I'm so sweet and therefore, we could again walk all over you. And I imagine Jen gets that as the fun, laid back, chill, cute girl. And so I could see that she's like, fuck this. Like,
fair.
yeah, I might be cute and fun and like having a good time with these guys, but like I'm not also fucking around. So I like there was a part of what she did that I was like, yeah, I fucking get that. And I sometimes have to be that way, like as a boss too, of like, no, like you are not going to like disrespect me just because I'm not, or don't take my kindness as weakness.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's fair. I think that that's an interesting perspective. You know, obviously I'm coming at it from a different angle. But yeah, I see it.
So she goes in there and she says to the men, if this is not the place you want to be, you should get out. And then she immediately grabs Marcus for a chat.
I think the grabbing of Marcus was very telling, right? Marcus, we've said we like Marcus a lot. I was disappointed with their one-on-one date because it just didn't feel like they had chemistry. But the one thing that you can count on with Marcus is that he is going to be a stabilizing rock and force where he just seems so genuine, authentic, and there's a maturity to him. He's also on the older end of the group. And for her to grab him first, I think, was in some ways her stabilizing herself. Mm-hmm. She's like, who's the guy in the room right now that I am most confident that I can go in there and take 10 minutes and it's going to be like I can get my feet back under me.
He can help ground me.
Yeah, he'll help ground me, and like and you know, I don't necessarily have to go put on a show or do anything like that. And that, I think, was really important contextually. And I think that the way Marcus showed up for her was solid, mm-hmm. right? Was mm-hmm. it perfect? Probably not, but it was solid.
Yeah, he's a solid, sturdy guy.
Yep. What you want in somebody who is a military vet.
Yeah.
Solid and sturdy and dependable.
Yeah.
And reliable and loyal.
For
and that's
sure.
what he is. At least from what we can tell, that's what it seems like he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then, you know, we see some conversations by the men in the cocktail portion in like some people pro Aaron, aka Sam M, and mm-hmm. some people like that was unfair of him to do, like Devon, and so like again, these two men are on the opposite side of, you know, a situation.
Every situation.
Yeah, and one thing that Devon says is they have made the entire journey about themselves despite saying that they're here for Jen. And I thought that was such a good summary of what's going on.
Devon had a lot of face-to-cameras statements in this episode that just nailed it. And he's had throughout the last two episodes. He just has a gift for succinctly stating exactly what is going on around him in a way that comes across as taking the high ground and taking the high road. And
I've said it before. I don't know if I've ever said it on the pod, but like, I think that Devon is this season's Maria.
You have said that on the pod, yes. I mean, I think there's a distinct difference, right? I see the resemblance.
Like not someone who I think could win, someone who I think could go far, someone that is sturdy in their own way, entertaining, endearing in their own way, lots of confidence.
Yeah,
will self-implode eventually.
Yeah, well, I think that the big difference between Maria and Devon is Maria had great insight into how to handle Joey. Mm-hmm. She was not good in the female dynamic, in the group dynamics with the females. Devon is actually very insightful and very good at both of those. Mm-hmm. And that's why I just think, you know, Devon is a better version of Maria mm-hmm. in many ways. Mm-hmm. You know, people loved Maria, and this is actually relevant. You want to talk about sort of like double standards or the perceptions of how one person can act one way, another way, and we weight them differently. Maria was beloved, right? Maria was just as sort of antagonistic as Devon was, just as obnoxious as Devon is, but she was actually less effective thus far as Devon has been. Devon is actually a significantly better version of, or more effective version of Maria, and yet many people out there do not like Devon and find him annoying and obnoxious, yet they loved Maria. And I think that is a fascinating dynamic.
That's a really good point.
Every now and then I hit one. Yeah.
Who else was obnoxious was
all other 14 guys.
We have the final exchange between Sam M and Jen, and this was also
God. This was bad too.
Quite bad.
Yeah.
Where Jen, pulls they're together, and she says,
"There's still the fallout from her laying her
the hammer down."
Yeah, the hammer down on everybody. Yep.
And she says, "You're not rattled by my speech," and he was like, "No, like I'm not affected." And Jen was like, "Well, that's nice for you," meaning like an invitation. Like, I'm fucked up over this.
Yeah, like there were two things here. One is you did not ask her about herself in any way, shape, or form. How is she feeling? He never asks her about herself. He always immediately gets to the makeout session. It's always immediately physical, and he does not care about her enough to ever inquire about what's going on.
You know who does ask her about herself and how she's doing?
Was it Devon? Did I get that one right?
You got that right. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a huge Devon fan. Clearly, my bias about Sam M
Who saw that coming?
Is coming out. I mean, honestly, the internet, they were not a fan of Sam M from the beginning. We liked him on date one. Yeah.
Or day one.
I guess we were charmed.
Yeah.
But I see you. I'm out.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like I need to add the disclaimer.
But I also liked Thomas N on night one too.
Yeah.
Hard pass on that guy too.
Same words, different font. Like, yeah, I'm just not a fan. And listen, like I acknowledge I have a strong bias here toward Devon, and that is definitely impacting the way that I'm reading through situations. And similarly, I have a negative lean towards Sam M. But I do think, objectively speaking, again, pointing out these situations where there is a clear juxtaposition between the two. Yes, I have a bias, but it's informed by, again, what we're seeing on an edited TV show. I do feel like I need to add the disclaimer that while we're making predictions about the sad nature of Sam M's future, we don't actually know him. We can't do that. This isn't meant to be a character assassination of him as a person, but as the character who's playing on TV, not a fan. Let's go to the rose ceremony.
Rose ceremony it is.
So, as I said, we have 15 guys. 3 men already have date roses. That's Jeremy, Spencer, Devon, meaning there are 12 roses up for grabs. And because Aaron self-eliminated, only 2 men will go home as a result of this rose ceremony. And those 2 men are Thomas A.
Don't know who you are.
I know he has abs as a result of
this. He does have abs.
This episode. And sadly, Hakeem.
I was really sad. Hakeem has just been, you listed him as a unproblematic, fun bro. He was comic relief. He was not going to win, but you know what? He was fun as hell, and I really enjoyed having him around. I thought, we have people in here that we've never seen before, like John M.
I've seen very little.
Yeah, who the heck is John M? Don't know. There's another guy in there somewhere. I can't even find him in my notes. I guess it was probably Thomas A. Anyway, I'm happy you asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. All right, so I think it is time to get into rose and thorns.
Let's do it.
All right. I want to start with my rose this week.
All right.
And that goes to, and I know this is going to come as a surprise because I've been very critical of Jen, but I have I have a rose to give out for Jen. During the second group date, she made a comment.
Was it about ice cream?
It was not about ice cream, no. She said, hot boys drive stick shift. And I'm here for it, Jen. I agree. Hot boys drive stick shift.
That's funny because my thorn was the fact that 3 out of those 4 guys did not drive stick shift. And it was such a turnoff for like maybe a shallow reason, but that was my thorn. Just like the lack of competence in that area. And it just felt like, I don't know, maybe I just like a traditionally like masculine man, like not golden retriever energy is like not really my thing, but like yeah.
How does a guy not know how to drive a stick shift? Like how, I do not understand. Like it's like a basic it's like changing a tire. Like you're a guy, you know, half the cars in the world are stick shifts. Many cars in foreign countries, they only have stick shifts. Like, have you traveled and rented a car overseas? All motorcycles are basically clutch shifts. So like they're basically, you know, stick shifts, slightly different orientation. But like, so you haven't driven a motorcycle, you haven't gone overseas and rented a car. You like, I just, it's mind boggling to me that you can get 75% of guys in a room or more that have not driven a stick shift. Mind-boggling to me. So I'm with you, Jen. I'm with you. Hot guys drive stick shift.
My rose, I've already alluded to at the top of this episode. And so maybe it's not fair to give a rose. Maybe I need to give like a bouquet of roses, because my roses go to this entire episode, that it was a good episode that we could enjoy on our vacation, and that I didn't feel resentful having to work on vacation. So that another entertaining episode, I am here for it. So you get all my roses this episode.
Similar sort of track for me. So my thorn this week is that I could not lure that little feral resort cat into the room. So
we did take some photo and video.
I did take some photo.
I was kind of wondering though, did you want to pick that mic because it's furry like Max?
No.
Is that the way he's there in spirit?
It's because this microphone I've never used before, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and so I thought I'd give you the good one. We ran out of space. I couldn't take two heavy mics.
Okay. Well, we will be back next week. Similar setup. Apologies in advance if the quality was poor. We're trying our best. But yeah, we'll be back next week recording again from Mexico for week 4 of Jen's season of The Bachelorette. Until then, make sure you are following us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on the bottom of this video so that you can stay tuned with all of the new additions that we'll be adding to our channel. Again, help us reach that 1,000 subscribers. We also have another podcast, Wishing You Well, which is on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel for that, Wishing You Well by Revive Center for Wellness. You can follow along with me on Instagram at Amy Albero LCSW. You can follow my company, Revive, at Revive CFW, also on Instagram. For any feedback, questions, suggestions, email us at reactivitytv@revivecfw.com. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Yo necesito un gato vacación. Adios, mi amigos.